Hey guys, welcome to RC Video Reviews. Tonight we're going to talk a little bit about this little baby right here. But before we get started, I had to let you guys know what did all this. So, I got the 85-inch laser, and then Dave turns around and goes out and gets himself an 85-inch Raven. And he calls me. He says, "Hey, my Raven's actually bigger than your laser." And never being one to shy away from a measuring contest, kapow, I decided to go out and get the 102. No, I'm just kidding. It's all fun. But no, I've had one of these big planes on my mind for a while. I've been wanting to try one of these Stingers. And honestly, it was really a contest to see if I could stuff it in the back of my car. So anyway, I've got some things laid out. We're going to talk a little bit about the power system. I wanted to give you guys a frame of reference, and I am going to put the chat away because I don't want the chat to overshadow what's on the desk. But you keep chatting. I'll check comments as I go. But I wanted to give you guys frame of reference. That's what this is all about. And so I laid it out so you could get some idea of what's going on here. And we're going to start out. This is a prop for a 67-inch plane. This is 18 by 8. This recommends a 120 amp ESC. And we fly those planes with one of these, 6L 5000. Of course, I use China Hobbyline. That's my battery of choice right now. But China Hobbyline battery, 6S 5000, 18-8 prop. And I just wanted to give you the perspective that the prop that's going on the 102 is 10 inches longer. This is a 28-inch prop. We'll get to that in a minute. Okay. So then prior to this little evolution, the next biggest plane that I have swings one of these bad boys. This is a 2410. This is for an 85-inch plane. This is exactly the size prop that I put on my 85-inch laser. Although after buying the wood prop, I opted to put a carbon fiber prop on it, which is why I have this. Normally, I don't keep spares of this size prop, but this is an 85-inch airplane. This is a 2410. This is 4 inches shorter than the 2813 that you see there. And when we fly the 85-inch, we use a 160 amp ESC and two of these. So two of these in series for 12S, so 12S 5000, swinging a 24 by 10 prop. Okay. Now let's put the toys away and get out the big stuff. And that's this little getup. Again, I just did that for perspective to give you guys an idea of what we're looking at here. So I did a video the other day where I showed how to assemble a 12S pack. This is my assembled 12S pack. This is two 6S 5000, just like I showed you, but these have to be connected in parallel, which is what I've got here. I've got a parallel connection connecting my two 12S 5000. So that's 12S 5000, 12S 5000. They are connected in parallel, and they will be connected to the ESC, and I use these XT150 connectors. I'm not going to close the circuit because you shouldn't do that without a load on the motor, but these that will be connected right there. So that's the parallel connection for this setup. So 12S 10,000, that's 5,000 and 5,000 in parallel. And this is a 220 amp Scorpion ESC. This is the Tribunus 14220 ESC. So that's the ESC that we power it. And then of course this big beautiful prop. This thing is just gorgeous. It's made by Falcon, and it is designed for electric applications. And specifically, I'll talk about Stinger in just a moment, but it specifically works with that Stinger unit. So this is a 28 by 13 C2E prop. This is carbon for electric. Okay. So that's the ancillary gear. Now let's get to the guest of honor. We're going to talk about this. I wanted to give you guys a close-up look at this first because it's nice to see a detailed look at the hardware in a video format that static pictures just can't do. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit, and then we're going to take a little bit of a detailed look at this unit so you get an idea of what's involved here. And then I'll explain the technology behind it. We'll get into the explanation here momentarily, but I did want to give you a look. This is by Stinger Power Systems. Link is in the description if you'd like to get one of these for yourself. It's not an affiliate link. It's just a small local business, right? He's doing business. He's building these. You can tell this is handcrafted here in the U.S., and he creates the framework, the standoffs, the gears, all of the mounting apparatus that you need to put this together. And I believe his motors are hand wound. Obviously, that's a Scorpion motor going with a Scorpion ESC. I think he said they're hand wound, but I don't know if that's 100%. Like, I don't know if they're all hand wound or not. So it is a Scorpion motor, obviously. And I saw one question in the comments, how do you get it apart? Well, there's a screw right there, a grub screw. You can remove this casing, which gives you the prop washer. And I'm going to take the prop nut out. Also, hey, notice on the top, the prop nut is threaded. So if you've got one of those spinners that screws in from the front, you can do that like one of the Warbird spinners if you have one of those. So that's threaded. Very nice touch there. And then the prop washer, 4 holes there. And then there are a couple of pointy screws that you screw into the base there. And these are anti-slip screws. So what you'll end up doing is you'll put the prop on this hub, and you'll use the prop nut and the washer to compress it and make a divot using these pointy screws. And then you can remove it and drill the holes out for the prop. You only need to go about 5 millimeters deep to hold on to the prop. They only need about 5 millimeters. That's it. And that should be enough to hold the prop on the hub, keep it from spinning. And when you're putting your back plate on and your prop nut on, it'll keep this whole apparatus from spinning under the cowl, which is kind of nice as well. So that's a nice little touch. You can just hold on to the prop and use it as a lever while you tighten things down. So, okay, so grub screw here, this prop mount adapter comes off, and then you'll be left with the gear. And then underneath, there's got to be a grub screw holding the gear on. And there's also, if you look at the pinion gear, there's 2 of them, one right there and one right there on the bottom. So in order to change the belt, you can remove the top piece, loosen the gear, and then slide it off, and then probably go ahead and hit the pinion gears as well if you need to take that off. I mean, obviously that's how it's put together. And then a couple of screws up top to hold the motor onto the main mounting plate. And then also notice for stability, the shaft comes all the way back to the back where there's a bearing, and that will obviously help with the torsional loads on the main shaft going through the device, going through the Stinger. And then the belt comes pre-fit. And just a word of warning, when you buy this, the idea is he sells these complete units with the motor attached. This is how I took it out of the box. So when I took it out of the box, I didn't have to assemble this. It came like this out of the box, completely assembled. And one other thing that I'll point out is that Jim includes if you buy the ESC from him, he'll program the ESC for you. So he'll program it using the S-Proto software. Of course, if you buy it, if you have an ESC and you want to use your own, he can give you advice and a file on programming your ESC, so you can do it on your own as well. So that's the gear reduction unit. And then I'll also show you the standoffs. These are, now, what I had to do is I spent, first off, Jim's a great guy. You spend a little time talking to him, tell him what you're after, and he'll walk you through the process, right? So I told him what I was after, and we after a handful of emails went back and forth, I placed my order. So the standoffs, you'll keep in mind, you'll need standoffs, and these will go on your firewall, and they'll mount here like that on the back of the mounting plate, and that will give you the correct distance for the back plate from your spinner behind your cowl to your firewall. So you will need to know the measurement from your firewall to your cowl. And I can say in the case of the 102-inch plane, it was about 180.5 millimeters. And Jim said, yep, that's actually a pretty common distance. Makes sense. And also keep in mind that sizing really gives this whole assembled unit about the dimensions of a DLE 120, which is the right size motor for the size plane. 120cc motor is the equivalent. Now, that said, I did not get the Stinger 120. I opted for the Stinger 150. And the reason that I did that is because my initial goals were to have a higher powered or thrust to weight ratio than the 120 provided. And Jim said, well, you can get the Stinger 150. It's a little bit heavier, but it'll give you headroom. So you'll be able to run a larger prop. If I decide I want to, I can go up to a 30-inch prop. So this setup will give me the ability to run a 30-inch prop. But I decided for starters, I was just going to run the 2813 as recommended and see what I thought of it. And if I get the power, the thrust that I want out of it, the flight time, then I don't need to change. But if I want to, I have the ability to just upgrade the prop, and I don't have to change out other hardware. So that option is available to me. Although after talking to Jim and several other people who fly these larger planes, it doesn't look like that will be necessary. All right. So one last thing I'll mention about the top mounting hub here is that there are a couple of locating or anti-torque screws there. And he also includes 2 that go in here. So if you use a heavier prop, say a wood prop or a gas prop, and you want to use all 4 holes, you can do that as well. So he recommended for the C2E props, 2 would be fine, more than enough. All right. So that's a quick look at the Stinger itself. I'm just going to put things together so nothing gets lost. It's my luck. I have this thing called a third dimension. If I'm not careful with small parts, they wind up in the third dimension. I never see them again. So that's a look at the Stinger. That's a look at the standoffs. And this entire unit is designed to fit in the cowl with no modification at all. So it just bolts right onto the firewall and off you go. All right, so there's the Stinger. Now, you might be saying, John, why did you use a Stinger? Why didn't you use IC? Everyone asked me why I don't use IC. And then you might also ask, why didn't you just use a straight up Outrunner? All right, so first off, I don't fly IC. I never have. I probably won't. I'm electric. I like electric. I like the way it works. I like its reliability. I like how clean it is. And I like monkeying with it, to be frank with you. I don't like monkeying with gas engines. So I'm just an electric guy. So when I started doing the research, I looked at the options, and there were options. There are options out there. You can get non-geared Outrunners from Scorpion. They sell them for this size plane. But I did a little bit of reading, and when I looked at the Stinger, I started to notice a few things I like. So first off, the Stinger is a gear reduction system, and the idea is that it increases the efficiency between watts in and watts out. So that's an important thing when you're dealing with electricity. You're trying to look for the best efficiency you can get. This is, by the way, this is a post on RC Group by Jim, and the link is in the description if you want to go read the details of this post yourself. I simply copied it. All right, so this is direct from the RC Group's post, okay? So Jim goes on to say that electrical power systems have always been efficient. Non-geared 3-phase Outrunners, that's what we just looked at, can deliver as much as 45% more efficiency than gas. Okay, that's interesting. And then additionally, the gear reduction units can give you as much as 15% more efficiency than a non-geared 3-phase Outrunner. Okay, now you've got my attention, because one of my goals for this plane was to get at least 6 minutes. I want at least 6 minutes of flight time out of it. So when you combine those two together, this translates to about 15% more flight time with the same power and the same battery capacity, or you can get more power at the same flight time with the same battery capacity. So those are your two options. You can either get more flight time and have the same power, or you can add power and get the same flight time. And then additionally, Jim writes about the C2E props. He said the C2E carbon fiber props sold by Falcon Hobby, they can give you as much as 11.2% more efficiency on the Stinger power systems, bringing the total net efficiency to between 22 and 25% higher compared to non-geared Outrunner of similar mass. So that's what got my attention about these units. All right, it's the efficiency to get that power that flight time that I want out of a electric powered system. All right, so the Stinger 150, that's designed for airplanes that need up to 150 cc. That's what I have. I have the Stinger 150 for my plane. I know it's a little bit of overkill, but again, I have headroom, so if I feel like I want more power, I can go up to a 30 by 12 C2E prop, no problem. And look at the production on this, 11.2 kilowatts. That's 13 horsepower at the shaft with a 12S battery configuration. 12S, you get 11.2 kilowatts, which is just stunning, with the 30 by 12. Okay. The Stinger 120 is the one that's more designed for the Stinger one. That's this one. That's more designed for a 120cc two-stroke engine. And again, that's spinning the prop that I have, which is a 28 by 13 CT prop. And that one with the 12S configuration, you're looking at 9.8 kilowatts. All right, so more than 11 horsepower at the shaft. And then he goes on to read out what the other options can do, the Stinger 85. And there are more than just these three on his website. If you go check it out, he's got more than that on his website. Then the last thing I wanted to show in this article, I'm not going to go into a lot of detail about it, but it's another lesson that I've learned being in radio control for a while, is that I pay attention to people who are in the know about these things. And, reading his post, he says, hey, since late 2018, I've been involved with the R&D of an electric power gear reduction unit. So he's been studying this problem for what, 6 years now, 7 years now. And so he's really invested. And the other thing, if you continue to read, is that he goes into a very long dissection of the performance elements that are involved in crafting these power systems. So the StinGR model, props, prop diameter, pitch, prop mass in grams, motor kV, voltage. These are all things that we use to determine what kind of power output we're looking for. And then, of course, you're looking for torque and thrust and your amperage consumption per HP and per pound of thrust. Obviously, all things we're interested in when we're designing our electrical power system. So if you really want to learn more about this, I'm not going to go through this in any level of detail here, but go ahead and go out to that RC Groups thread and you can see all kinds of pictures. He's got weights for all the different units, videos showing how some of these different airplanes fly with the different units in them. And you'll get an idea of just how much effort and research went into this system. So that's, with that said, I'll go back to the point that I started out earlier in reviewing this article. Extra efficiency, between 22 and 25% additional efficiency compared to non-geared outrunners of similar mass. So to me, that's a very interesting outcome, and it's it's the reason I decided to go with an outrunner-based system. So what's up next? What's up next will be to get this outrunner installed on the model, get the servos installed, obviously get the ESC finished up, and get the battery mounting apparatus figured out, because it's not as simple as just dropping these in and Velcroing them down. A little bit of work will have to go into that. So it'll take a little bit of time yet, but this will be the power system. When you guys see the ARS 300 fly, that's this one. When you see that in the air, this is what's going to be under the hood powering it. It's the it's the StinGR 150, powered by a Scorpion motor, a 220 amp ESC, and a 12S 10,000 power system. And then the motive force will come from this Falcon carbon fiber prop that measures 28 by 13. All right, if you'd like to check out StinGR, I've got a link for his website in the description, so you can go learn about the products that he's got and read his articles. Take a look at his website, read what the man has to say about it, and see for yourself if this is a fit for your next project. You might decide it is, and all I can tell you is that from the moment I asked Jim for information, I used the contact form on his homepage. He responded to me very quickly. We exchanged a handful of emails, and within, I'd say, 3 or 4 emails, I placed my order. So he's a highly responsive guy and very much in the know on what's going on with these large-scale planes. So I'm going to check comments real quick, and then we'll move on and we'll wrap the video up. Let's see. Robert knows the Corvette and Mustang joke. That's pretty funny, Robert. Just reload the page. Audio is perfect. Okay. Let's see. Wow, that looks like super nice. What size plane? That's 102 inch ARS 300. Scimitar Kurt Nutt says, reminds me of the old Byron unit that mounted a 60 CI engine to fly quarter scale from foam pits. All right. Let's see. Some P40s used to run. Yeah, that's one thing that Jim mentions on his page, is that these units are really good for scale props too. So if you want to run 3 and 4 bladed props, no problem there. Props Off says, John, have you seen Andy RC's latest video, Sweet Digital Cluster in the pit of an RC plane? I have not. I haven't seen that. And Props Off says, man, John, you have all the fun. Yeah, well, you gotta keep exploring and pushing the boundaries. So, oh, and by the way, guys, just FYI, I'm trying to talk China Hobby Line into producing 12S production packs so we don't have to make them. So I've been kind of leaning on them with both the helicopters and the big airplanes to come up with some 12S retail options so we don't have to build them. And then let's see, what motor was in the 85? It's a dual sky GA. It's a dual sky. Yeah, there's a top secret motor out there that I'm not releasing, but the motor I have in it to fly right now is a dual sky. That's what I'm flying. But we're testing something else that's not released yet, so I can't reveal that. But the production motor that I fly with, that's set up for that plane, is a dual sky. All right, guys, that's all I've got for tonight. If you like this kind of content, make sure you subscribe. Smash that thumbs up button so YouTube will recommend my video, and hit the notification bell so when new content lands on the channel, you'll know about it and you can come and watch. I hope you liked the video, and if you did, come back and watch the next one. That's all I've got for tonight. Take it easy and go fly something.